thanks to those that are with us in person tonight and those that are joining us online. We have a pretty lengthy agenda that we will move right on through. So we'll start with a roll call.
Mr. Patterson?
Here.
Mr. Davenport?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. O'Connor?
Here.
Mr. Weiss?
Here.
Mr. Crute?
Here.
Ms. Furley?
Here.
Thank you very much. Having had a chance to review the agenda, would love a motion to approve when ready.
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We now will have a consideration of the minutes from our meeting on November 20th of 2024. Having had a chance to review the minutes, are there any additions or corrections? Perfect. Would love a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from the November 20th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
It has been moved and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. So we have our first public hearing. We will go back, public participation. We have an opportunity for individuals to make statements on non-agenda items. So if we have folks signed up, Madam Clerk.
Cal Ashley?
Perfect, come on down. If you just state your name.
Hello, I'm Kyle Ashley.
Awesome.
I put together a petition to present to Farmville Cumberland County City Council. It's to build an Amish road that would connect from Cumberland County Route 60 to Main Street. In the last 8 years, the Amish community has been here. They experienced 25 losses of life plus injuries. This new route would alleviate that from happening. Along this 14 miles, planned to plant apple trees, peach trees, blueberry bushes, asparagus, strawberries, perennials that grow back year after year, using our public schools to plant it and using our regional jails to harvest it. We spend a high amount of tax dollars feeding students, and a lot of those goods are imported. And we can locally grow those through a growing solution, also saving Amish lives. I have together copies of the petition I would like to pass out to you. I spoke with the board of Prince Edward County of Public Schools, and we were working on the beginning of the year of making a curriculum. My next step would be to implement the individuals that own the land, also working with Dominion Power to utilize the trail spacing. Since that's already cleared, they're currently using pesticides to prevent growth. They would no longer have to do that because the schools and the regional jails would maintain that. The Amish community would build the trail. Cumberland put in a proposal to have an extension of a road line built for them. VDOT came back with a proposal of $20 million. That's just too costly. The Amish community would build this trail, investing in the future of their community. I suggest we could do the same with our public schools, teaching kids how to grow food and produce. There are industries all over the world that import us goods. I know this is only seasonal growth, but through the savings that we could do locally, we could then use vertical grow facilities on school grounds to cultivate lettuce year-round for them, so we could have free salad bars for children. There should be no food insecurity in America. We have prime opportunity, and we're vastly funded as a nation. We can easily achieve this. I thank you guys for your time.
We appreciate you sharing your ideas and suggestions. Would also encourage you to continue to conversate with town staff and members of the Farmville Town Council.
Yes, sir.
To further your idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, any additional individuals for public participation?
No, sir.
Cool. We will have additional opportunities for each of the public hearings tonight. So item 6 on our agenda, public hearing CUP 24-007. Thorn Harvin, on behalf of the Rosemary Corporation, requests a conditional use permit to allow for 4 181-unit, 35,310 square foot mini warehouses, self-storage buildings, 2 22-unit, 8,250 square foot mini warehouse self-storage buildings, and 1 4,500 square foot office per town code section 29.13.c. The proposed 17.204 acre lot is located on the west edge of Perry Drive. The property is zone B3 commercial, highway commercial. So we'll hear a staff report, applicant statement. We'll open the public hearing and then deliberate on the item.
Thank you. The proposed 17.196 acre lot is located on the west edge of Perry Drive and includes the single-family dwelling that's located at 1914 Perry Drive. Aside from the single-family dwelling, the property is undeveloped and mostly wooded. The property is zoned B3 highway commercial. Schul's home sits to the right of the property with the shops at Farmville and Walmart across Marywood Farm Road. True by Hilton and single-family dwellings sit across Perry Drive from the property. To the left of the property is a single-family dwelling and multiple single-family homes in the Crestview subdivision. To the rear of the property is undeveloped, mostly wooded land. Here's a vicinity map. The red is the subject parcels. The blue is the adjacent property owners that received notices. Here's the aerial photo to show the relation from Schul's at 105 Marywood Farm Road, and then the shops at Farmville and Walmart to the right. The applicant has submitted a proposed subdivision plat that would go before council. This is what that subdivision would look like. It would take in that 0.79 acre lot that is 1914 Perry Drive, and it would block off a 5 acre lot that would front on Marywood Farm Road. The single family residence that's to the left of the property would have a boundary line adjustment to bring in a little bit of a small amount of acreage into their parcel. And here is a proposed layout of the site. Many warehouses are permitted by conditional use permit in the B3 Highway Commercial District. A mini warehouse is defined as a building designed to provide rental storage space in cubicles where each cubicle has a maximum floor area of 400 square feet. Each cubicle shall be enclosed by walls and a ceiling and have a separate entrance for the loading and unloading of stored goods. The conduct of sales, business, or other activity within the individual storage units other than the storage shall be prohibited. There are no separate design standards for the specific use listed in section 2935 of the zoning ordinance. Comprehensive plan considerations for this property is the existing use, land use is undeveloped, but it is in the B3 business district. The future land use map shows this area as general commercial. General commercial land uses are a lower density element of Farmville's commercial economy. General commercial lacks the historic significance of tourism interests of the downtown, but provides goods and services that are necessary to life of the town. The future land use general commercial has a floor area ratio of up to 2.0. The proposed project has a floor to area ratio of 0.216. This calculation was done by the site engineer. The floor to area ratio is the total building area divided by the total lot area. This property has access to town water and sewer services. A site plan with construction documents will show the type and sizes of connections needed for this project. There should be no improvements to town maintained streets for this project. Off-street parking is required. Per town code section 2933H, 3 spaces plus 1 space per 100 units be required. This calculation would be shown on the site plan. This site is not located in a floodplain or other protected area. There are no impacted watercourses, steep slopes, or other atypical factors. Emissions should be minimal for this commercial use. Staff recommendations for this site is that a conditional use permit approval is conditioned on the approval of the subdivision plat by the town council. If the subject CUP is approved, a site plan is required for this development, which meets all ordinance requirements in accordance with the zoning ordinance. The plan will be submitted to the Planning Commission for review and approval. I've got some pictures in here to show what the property looks like. This is across the street from Perry Drive, looking to the property with that single-family residence to the left. This is the single-family residence that would be incorporated into the parcel and demoed for the project. We did not receive any comments prior to the meeting on this project. The staff report was submitted to the property owner, the applicant, the engineer, and the real estate broker for their information. I can take any questions about the staff report at this time.
Ashley, I have a question about the scope of the CUP request. If the 5 acres is subdivided off of the site, the CUP does not apply to it, correct? Correct. Okay, so it just applies to the balance of the site with all the property lines adjusted.
Right. So that 3713C adjusted to have the boundary line adjustment, and that lot incorporated would come out to 17.196 acres.
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Any questions of staff? Cool. I think at this time we would welcome the applicant's statement. Yep.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Thornton Harvin with Rosemeyer Corporation, which is a parent company for AA Self Storage. We currently have a facility at 1505 South Main Street. That facility is in a shopping center, which I think used to be an old Walmart. Tractor Supply is on the left. And that facility has stayed over the past at least 3 years 100% occupied. And in the meantime, we've been trying to find a site in Farmville that we could expand. And this site fits our criteria for the single-story buildings that we do. We're trying to provide some parking. They have a long list of individuals that want to park RVs, boats, small trailers, and we're trying to find a site that we can supply some of that, along with climate control storage and standard storage. In the picture where you saw on the preliminary site plan, there's an office at the front that is up against Schul's. That would be a 2-story office. We would request to have a manager's apartment above. Most all of our facilities are fenced and cameras and high security. A lot of the self-storage facilities are unmanned now, and we pride our facilities in having on-site maintenance and a full-time manager. This allows us to have somebody that's there 24 hours, even when there's not 24-hour access. Most of our facilities, such as in Lynchburg and Madison Heights, we have no 24-hour access to the customers. In Raleigh, we have a handful that we do for businesses, such as people that have to pack trucks at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning to do deliveries, but it's very rare. So most of the access is in between 6:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night, but most of it typically is in the daylight hours. The facility, the actual office, is open from 9 in the morning to 6 p.m. And then the facility is closed, and you have to have a code to get in the gates. This site is great because it gives us a lot of wooded area and a lot of buffer for the community, and just to keep the site blending with the area. We like the access. Yeah, it's got large streets coming in from the stoplight, from the Walmart, and we think it would keep most of the traffic in those highly traveled areas and not in the communities. Any questions that I can help with?
So explain the exterior storage. Is that what you mean by some of the commercial?
I've got a
vehicles?
couple of pictures. We just finished a big facility down in Beaufort, North Carolina. Give you an idea of what the office looks like, and inside the climate control building, the outside of the climate control building, and covered RV building. We've got a couple extra if anybody else would like any. The office that we just talked about, that's up against the Schulz, would just look just like this office. It has windows on the left and right sides, and the top floor is an apartment. It is separated from the downstairs, which is a true commercial office. This picture's missing. You'll see there's a frame for an awning, and I think in Beaufort we did a yellow awning, yellow metal awning, and we try to not copy each office, but in this case, since we can fit it on this site, it would look just like this office that you see in the picture. If you turn the page, you'll see that is one of our typical climate control buildings. They're insulated wall panels, and inside, which you'll see on the next page, you'll see that a company called Betco comes in and they actually build the self-storage units inside the shell of the building. It's a really neat concept, and it's very energy efficient because they're insulated wall panels, and then we do a TPO roof with insulated insulation board that's below the TPO. It's not a tall building. It's roughly about 18 feet. Very simple. On the left, on the second page, you'll see that is a RV and boat three-sided covered storage building. That one's a silver in color. Typically, the metal is kind of a Rust-Oleum red, as I call it. This one is galvanized because it's at the beach. But that is the typical size we would do for a covered RV storage facility. And then we typically install one electric vehicle charging station for the customers and have one interior bathroom for the customers.
You have a question? You answered my question. I just had another question too about the fencing. So I'm guessing the fencing will start, does it start at the turn in and just wrap around?
Correct.
Do the exterior storage?
Typically, we try to fence the property line. This site in the back right corner, it's got a lot of retention, and if anybody is familiar with the lay of the land, it drops off heavily at the back. And if you drive around the left side of the Walmart, you can see how far it drops off. It's a good 100-foot drop. And so we would probably only fence, we would not fence that wooded area. We would only fence from where the office is down along the property line, and then maybe back to that gravel parking, and then back up the gravel and not around the retention pond, but then it would come back around those two buildings that you see in the model at the bottom of the drawing, and then back up around to Peary Road to the entrance. And all of our gates, this one only has one gate. They're all electric, and you have a key code. You get in, electric gate opens. The only difference that we've thought about in this site plan is the building that is up against the residential. That section of the site is going to be lower because of the grade, because that portion is down in a hole. And so the residences would not be looking at a building that's on the same grade. The building would actually be lower, which I think would help with their any line of sight looking at, out of their back porch or backyard to a building. You'd still see the roof and probably a portion of the top of the building, but these roofs, as you see in the picture, are flat. They've got a little slope. There's no gable. It's a light gray TPO, so it's fairly easy on the eyes. And then we could also do some landscape buffers, such as Leyland cypress or some evergreens on that side from the residence.
Any additional questions of the applicant?
I have a few, please. First, let me confirm, I understand the proposal. The buildings, the storage buildings, not the office building, the access doors into each cubicle would be inside the building. It's not a series of garage doors
Correct.
along the exterior. Like
Correct.
some
The
storage
only
buildings.
one that has what you would think of as your typical outdoor self-mini storage are the small buildings that you see, the really skinny ones. Those you drive up to, and they have the roll-up doors.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the non-climatized storage.
And the fencing that you mentioned, is it a solid fence, so you can't
Solid
really
fence.
look through it? It's not like a chain link fence? It's
It
like
is a
wall.
chain, typically we do a
It is.
chain link.
Okay.
And they has a barbed wire top. And usually we fence the whole site unless we can fence between buildings, where the back of one of the climate control buildings would actually act as part of the security fence instead of fencing, 6 feet behind the building. But the whole site is secured so that nobody can go back and forth through the self-storage buildings.
But basically, if I'm outside the fence, I can look through the fence?
Yes, sir.
And look into the site?
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. And another question, and I think this started to come up, the exterior storage, the 1 acre part, looks like it's 1 acre.
Correct, the gravel
Yeah.
parking.
You mentioned this one has a roof over it. Is the one you're proposing also roofed or no roof?
We haven't gotten that far into it. We're thinking maybe one side of that gravel parking would have a roof, and the other side would be open parking, just a gravel lot that would have lines on it. That's not shown on here, but we're still working through trying to gauge the demand for who wants the covered parking.
But the purpose of that storage is to store
It's really for
vehicles?
RVs.
RVs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there, from a town code perspective, any issue with having that? Or do we need to limit it to just that versus something else being stored outside, whatever that might be? No? Okay.
Usually it's just boats and RVs.
All right.
And it's usually the really nice RVs that want to pay to get the covered storage.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So in the part of the property that backs up towards Crestview is, I noticed this, where you're putting the fence versus the setback is fairly large. So when you do the site work, is the intent that, because there's existing woods up against the back, that part of the property. So is the intent to leave that and just, or would you have to grade it all and then come back and landscape it, or is that TBD as you
We
dial
would
in?
probably have to grade because that part of the site is dropped. We would have to grade to a degree once it's dropped, to get that slope, and then we would probably have to replant it, would be my vision for it. The trick with this site is because it's got a lot of gully to it, is we've got to, for instance, take the front of the site, kind of like Schulz did, and drop it down so that it's similar to the grade of the sidewalk, and flip that dirt to the back so that we can fill some of that gully in the back. But I know those 3 back buildings, the retention pond and the gravel parking will be significantly lower than the 3 buildings in the office that are at the front. You basically have to drive down to those. So they will be more in a hole to a degree, I guess you could say.
Another question. Have you studied any traffic impacts? I know the RIDA basically seemed to suggest.
We really haven't. I asked our managers in Lynchburg and Madison Heights, on Monday, they had 10 tenants access, all of Monday. And on Tuesday, they had 21 tenants access. In Madison Heights, on Monday, they had 21 tenants access. And yesterday, on Tuesday, they had a total of 17 access. So it's really not a high traffic pattern, I guess, going in and out of the facility.
Are those facilities about the same size
Yes,
as
sir.
this proposed one?
Correct, yep. Lynchburg is fairly large. Madison Heights is a little bit smaller than this. It's about 600 units. But it's just not a lot of traffic going in and out. And then there's none at night, so that's good.
Alrighty. If there are no more questions, we'll now take a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we open the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So the public hearing has been opened. Individuals are able to come forward to speak for 3 minutes related to this particular project. If you have not yet put your name down, I'll give folks a moment to indicate their desire for that, but I'll turn it over to the clerk. Alrighty, we'll call the first person up. If you still want to continue to put your name up, you can do that, but we'll jump right in.
Ruth Budd.
If you could just state the street in which you reside.
101 Crestview Drive, which is at the corner of Perry and Crestview. And I wrote 3 things down here when I was listening to the presentation. Now, excuse me, I'm not an engineer or I don't understand all the map stuff, but I have some questions. First of all, there was something listed about the hours, about some 4:30 in the morning and basically from 6:30 until 10. Was that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So
What you said?
the tenants can only access from 6:30 in the morning until 10 at night. After that, their codes don't.
What was the 4:30 you talked
That's in
about?
Raleigh. Our Raleigh, North Carolina facility only has a handful, and it's a lot
Okay.
larger.
Okay, the second thing, I understood you had RVs, trailers, and all that kind of stuff listed. Perry Drive, most of you who are sitting over there, if not all of you, know very little about the history of Crestview and how we have been frustrated, worried, for years came to town council and planning commission and everything about our concerns. As far as the traffic, on a traffic study and whatever, the traffic on Perry Drive is horrendous, day and night. And I'm concerned not with the storage facility, but traffic dumping out onto Perry Drive to increase what is already a horrible situation. Now, the speed limit on Perry Drive is 25, and not one person in 5,000 goes 25, and I live there. There are 3 no truck signs on Perry Drive, including some larger ones that our town council representative had placed there. And trucks, and I mean big trucks, go by every single day, and some at night. And it's kind of a thoroughfare, and it's not safe for man nor beast. And this is what worries me about all of this emptying out onto Perry Drive. I guess when I first got this, I didn't understand for sure how much of this was going to be on Marywood, how much of it was going to be on Perry Drive, and I'm still not sure, but it looks to me like an awful lot on Perry Drive. And when people use storage facilities, they bring in U-Hauls and trucks, and as the gentleman said, now we're going to have RVs and trailers and that kind of stuff too. So the Perry Drive issue with the traffic, the noise, the lights, and I don't know what the lighting's going to be like, are concerns of mine. Not that there's a storage facility put there. There are worse things that could be put than a storage facility. But the Perry Drive issue is the major concern of mine. And then, of course, you're going close to our neighborhood, so you've got things like lighting and noise and whatever. The reason I asked about the hours when something was mentioned about 4:30, this morning at 4 a.m., the garbage people
I'm sorry, Ms. Budd, your time is up.
were dumping receptacles down. So noise is an issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Michael Walker.
Good evening, Michael Walker from Landon Street. Sir, one of the questions I had is you were saying about the traffic study, and you mentioned that what you knew, there were like a few people attending the units at night. Well, I've had 15 years experience in that business, and what I can tell you is that the average every day that you took a picture of doesn't fit the scenario, because especially in a town like Farmville where we have a lot of elderly people, there's a big uptick of people coming to the storage units during the holiday seasons, all right? And for Farmville on Perry Drive, in the holiday season when all the grandparents and everything are storing their stuff and they're buying their vehicles and everything, that 11 or 12 people coming in a day adds up to about 30 or 40 visits to the storage unit during that time. And 30 or 40 people coming in or bringing in RVs or large vehicles and everything. I'm not so sure that's a good idea for the area. So if you could, we would like to see you do an actual study of the traffic patterns and give us an idea of how it's going to be around the holidays or major events. Because like I said, around storage units, when you have holidays and major events, everybody's going to go to their storage unit and get all their extra stuff to put it up, and then they've got to take it back. So I'm curious to know how that's going to go. I also want to know what kind of lighting you're going to put up, because then you also have the problem with you need security lighting, so it's going to be bright, and the locations are going to impact the surrounding area. And those are the only basic questions I have, and I thank you for your time.
Stan Montgomery.
Stan Montgomery, 201 Crestview Drive. What Ruth said is really going to be a problem. That's number one. Everything she said, everything this gentleman said, you're going to have problems. It's an accident every day, or not every day, but at least 1 or 2 a week. We had one just day before yesterday at the end of Crestview where we live with a bus nipped a car. It's all the time. And you already had 3 to 4, I would say, If you put a traffic count, just like this gentleman said, if you put out there into the cars back and forth on Perry, and for people to understand, it's just a cut through. They don't want to go around there on the main part of the stoplight. They want to come down Perry and then get out that way. It can be backed up as much as any time of the day, a quarter of a mile down Perry. Nobody goes the speed limit. Nobody does. And all they're doing is coming out to cut around. They're trying to do the shortcut to get the stoplight so they don't have to do all the traffic up in front of Walmart. That's where you're getting it all. You're just going to add to that with this. The only thing my 2 cents worth was, have you ever thought about putting the entrance on Marywood, on the other side, the one beside Walmart? Because I know you got one way in and one way out. Then at least it'd be halfway between the one end of the inn and Perry. So at least you get half of them, they won't come right that way. It's bad enough you're going to have it. And I agree with Ruth too. It's not your buildings. I have no problem with it. And then it's just going to be, I'm scared. Every day, we're the ones that have to stop where Williams and Perry meet because nobody else does. And it's just going to be a nightmare for people. There's going to be probably days that we won't even be able to get out of a subdivision during a certain time. It's going to be that bad. I'm telling you. Like this gentleman said, if you do the study and you prove me wrong, I'm all for it. But I think you're going to see what you're going to get. Only other question I had was, I live kind of where you have the two. As a matter of fact, on 201. The two you have there, I know you're saying it's going to set down and kind of bottom. How far from that line to the back of our house is about how far is that? I know we'd be able to see, like you said, the top of the building. Right. I just didn't know, is that going to be like a road? Okay, I have my time. You still got time. I'm sorry. Is that going to be like a road? You see what I'm saying? In between, because like I said, you're backing up. Because we've seen the stakes you put up right behind my house.
Mr. Montgomery,
okay.
your time is up.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
There is no one else signed up to speak.
Okay. Given that there's no additional individuals for public hearing, would love a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Now we deliberate. And I'll just would love to, I'm going to give the applicant a moment to just address some of the concerns related to the parking piece, lighting.
I did talk with Kip about lighting last night. Most of the lighting is focused on the drive aisles. There's no need for us to do, and we don't do any lighting that are out past the buildings. We do put wall packs on some buildings when they're in more of a, I guess, an urban setting, if we're around a shopping center, because there's more, there tends to be, I don't want to say crime, we have some homeless issues in some facilities, but we don't have any, knock on wood, we don't have any break-ins. I think a lot of the reason for that is because in our climate control buildings, it's a building and everybody's self-storage units are inside. And so they can't even get into the building because the doors are locked electronically. I can't even remember the last time we had a break-in. So as far as security and lighting, the lighting typically just stays inside on the drive aisles. They wouldn't be shining back towards like shopping center lighting where they'd be shining back towards the residential areas. You would, if your lights are off in your yard, you would be able to see it in a distance. But we use LED lighting, and we just don't have to have as bright of a lighting as that they have at the self-storage that's on 1505 South Main, that's the shopping center. People access that 24 hours, where in this facility, we don't have any access after 10:30, so it's just not as bright. Security. Say that again. I don't have anything on traffic as far as a count. I just have my numbers for what the other facilities, how many people access during the day. Thank you.
I'll just say, I mean, based on the land use, this appears proper to me. There's two things I think I'll state, one of them being that the site plan itself, which would include the lighting plan and shielded lighting, for instance, or all of that, would come at a later date, correct? That would be done at a later date to discuss that, determine, and, make sure that it's adequate and the lighting concerns are addressed. I do think, so one of the things that was brought up is potentially Meriwether. It doesn't appear to me that the property would allow that, but I do wonder about potentially a further in curb cut off of Perry Drive, if that would, make sense for the road to help prevent traffic accidents there. But yeah, based on what I see here, I mean, overall, it fits the intended use of this area. Although I do understand and hear very clearly that corridor right there on Perry Drive, a lot of people are using as a cut around shortcut, and definitely need to consider that in the subdivision impact here, as well as lighting. I think is a very valid concern.
Mr. Chairman, one consideration here is this is already zone B3. This isn't a rezoning request. So some other use of this property could take place that may make traffic even a greater count than this is proposing, or less. We don't know without going down the whole list of B3 uses and what the possible outcomes are. So I make this comment more for the citizens who spoke up, that this is a special or a conditional request to use the property in a way that's not by right, but there are other uses by right that could impact traffic the same or more or less. We just don't know. So while I think it's a valid consideration about the impacts of traffic, and I frankly wish we had a better idea what the impacts would be instead of anecdotally from another building in another town. By right, this property could be developed into something that would produce traffic. So just put that out there for the neighbors to think about. Other thoughts are, if we're going to go forward and recommend this to council, I would suggest that we add to the conditions along the lines of what Jared's just saying about the lighting, just making sure the lighting is controlled. It's full cutoff. The lighting is down onto the driveways and not out toward other neighborhoods. I'm not clear if we need more screening or more fencing or different fencing, but it seems like, for example, the exterior storage is the way it's set back in the site. It's not going to be particularly visible anyway to other surrounding occupants. But I wanted, I guess, staff's viewpoints on whether we need to have something more specific about screening or fencing for this. And then lastly, I think a reasonable condition would be to indeed limit the hours of operation. If 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. is what works for the applicant, make sure it's limited. We don't have a 24-hour a day coming and going. I've used self-storage facilities before myself, which were 24/7. You could come and go at any time. So just put that out for consideration too, to limit the hours of operation.
Just to clarify, I think the lighting would I'm assuming wouldn't belong in a condition right here because it would be in the site plan later. But I do, as far as the second thing, that seems reasonable to potentially limit the hours of operation.
We can put lighting as a condition or defer it, whatever. I think it should be something we do address.
This would, if you want to address lighting, this would be the time because we do not regulate lighting in the zoning ordinance.
But it seems to me that the applicant's already suggesting that the lighting that he's intending for this use kind of meets these expectations. Am I correct? So we're not asking, or we're not talking about anything that you weren't already intending doing, correct?
I guess since it is on to be discussed right now, the lighting you had mentioned would be visible off-site. So I know radiant lighting may be, but do you have, an idea of shielded lighting where it's shielded from, especially the subdivision that's on the south side of the property there?
So most of the lighting is done by wall packs, and since these buildings are only 18 feet tall, the lighting is within the building. And for example, these two buildings, the lighting would shine between each other. And the wall packs, they shine their box, and the light lens is on the bottom. And so it shines halfway down, it doesn't shine up. And so the light doesn't really get above the buildings. Although if you're across the way and there are no lights on, you would see it in the distance. We do put what they call bullheads, which is a U shape on the corner of a building, and it has two spotlights. And we have a ramp where it comes down from the top buildings to the lower, just so people can see their path of travel. We do put bullheads in those areas. But we don't put anything on the back side of the buildings that would be shining into the woods or shining into the residential. But they're usually always LED wall packs, a lot of those, and then a couple of bullheads where they're needed just to have safe travel at night. We don't need to have any parking lot trees like you have in the shopping center or light poles or anything to that effect.
How does that compare with Days Inn lighting?
No questions from the audience. Anyone else from the commission? Put that question back out to the applicant.
How does that compare to the lighting at the Days Inn?
A lot less. And a lot less than our current facility that's on South Main.
So I'll make a motion. I think given that this is already zoned, it's a conditional use permit just because of the type of business, but it is a business, zone parcel. Thus far, the site plan seems to have been thoughtfully done. I do acknowledge some traffic issues on Perry Drive, but I think that is an issue to be looked at holistically in Perry Drive, not just this one parcel. And I understand the light concerns, but I don't know how we would do that unless we ask them to defer and come back. So given all that, I'd make a motion to approve the conditional use permit as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion from the commission?
Patrick, I have a question about your motion. Are you, about the hours of operation, are you including that or, because that was not a staff condition, that's a condition we can add to the list, right? As a friendly amendment, just hours that the applicant said were acceptable anyway. So it's not a 24-hour operation.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
So what we're talking about, but the 6:30 to 10, that's what you're already thinking about doing, correct?
Correct. Those are customer hours.
Right.
Correct. There'll be a manager on site, and they'll come and go, and anybody that's in the Rosemeyer Corporation that, if there's an emergency or whatever may need be, would come and go. But the customer hours are 6:30 to 10.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. If there are no additional comments,
Mr. Weiss, could you please clarify your friendly amendment?
That one of the conditions of the approval is that the operating hours for customers are 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Or access hours.
And 7 days a week, is that correct?
Correct.
is that good, Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss? Mr. Davenport?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Crute?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
All righty. Thank you very much. Moving on to our next public hearing for REZ 24-003, request for amendment to the official zoning map to rezone approximately 0.627 acres from R1 to B3. The site is located at 202 Millwood Road and consists of parcel numbers 0023 A091500-00A and 0023 A091500-00B. We'll have a staff report, applicant statement, public hearing, and deliberation.
Thank you. The request is to rezone approximately 0.627 acres from R1 low-density residential to B3 highway commercial. The area consists of two parcels. Dominion Energy proposes to rezone Parcel A and Parcel B as part of its project to expand the existing facilities and operations of the existing Dominion Energy site. The rezoning would allow Dominion Energy to construct additional facilities to expand their operational capabilities and improve services to the customers in the community. Parcel A contains a manufactured home with an accessory building. Parcel B is mostly undeveloped with several accessory structures. Here is the vicinity map to give you an idea of where those parcels are located on Millwood Road. The aerial map shows that you can see where the Longwood athletic fields are, Dominion Energy to the right, and a vacant parcel across Millwood Road. This shows the accessory structures that are on the back parcel and the manufactured home that's on the front parcel. The comprehensive plan, existing future land use map, kind of shows this area as undesignated. Here is the future land use map with the areas circled to show it sits between an institutional use and a general commercial use. The utilities, there are existing utilities to Parcel A. The applicant will coordinate with Public Works on using and or abandoning the existing utilities. The proposed expansion to the Dominion Energy site is not expected to have an impact to town streets or to the transportation system. The existing site will be demolished to move forward with the Dominion Energy site expansion. There are no known environmental impacts on the subject parcel. This is an overall layout of what the expansion project would look like. The two parcels that are up for rezoning are going to be where the transmission building is and the parking lot behind the building. I can answer any questions about the staff report.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple. Ashley, on the site plan you're showing, am I seeing it right that there would be no entrance into the lots that are being rezoned? There are now. I know if you go by there now, there's an entrance in and out, but there won't be entrances?
Not by this drawing. It shows that they would be using their existing entrances to the Dominion site. There's one on Millwood Road and one on East Third. The applicant is in the audience to further answer that question if needed.
Okay.
Any additional questions for staff? If not, we'll have the applicant statement.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alex Rendon with Dominion Energy. I'm joined by Cameron Morgan and Roger Rodriguez from Timmins, who are the actual engineers and can answer any technical questions that do come up. I'm the external affairs representative, state and local affairs for Dominion for the Farmville area. As the staff report said, we're looking to expand our existing facility on East 3rd Street. The first thing that you're going to hear is about the rezoning to take those adjacent parcels to our existing facility and allow us to use those. We are planning to renovate the existing main building and actually make an addition to that building, as well as add new parking to the main building, new parking on the north side of the property, and expand the paved yard area on the southwest side of the site and put up several freestanding structures. We've operated here for decades in Farmville, serving the town of Farmville area, Prince Edward County, and much of the region. The purpose of this expansion is to obviously better improve our operations there, and we'd be adding a transmission function to our site. Right now it's a distribution office. We're capable of supporting transmission functions in the area right now, but we'd be adding a new transmission function to the site. So like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rodriguez behind me who can answer any technical questions as well.
Can you elaborate on what a transmission is and what a transmission building is, please?
Sure. So distribution wires are the ones that run along streets that ultimately connect into your homes. The transmission system are the larger, higher voltage lines that transport electricity along longer distances. It's different infrastructure, different engineering, different design. So within Dominion, we have a distribution function and we have a transmission function to handle those two different systems. The transmission building, I think that there's a transmission storage building. So that's one of the freestanding structures. That building would be used to store transmission equipment that currently, with the current function at the site only being distribution, we don't have a place to store transmission equipment at this time. And the addition onto the main building would also include an extra office space for additional employees.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay. Could you, to Art's point, clarify where entrances and exits are?
Sure. I might ask Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rodriguez to step up.
So as you mentioned, the current plan shows just access, the existing access off Millwood and then the access off East 3rd Street. I believe one of the commissioners did note that there are other existing accesses off Millwood. The current plan for the project is to remove those points of access and only use the two existing ones that Dominion currently has for their facility. So we'd be decreasing the number of access points to the site from the Millwood side, but not moving them to any other locations on the road. So the existing access points stay as they are. Any questions?
May I follow up on that? I'm sorry, I was having a hard time hearing you. So the current entrance into the main Dominion site that's shown on this plan is going to continue in use?
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah.
There won't be, the entrances that currently exist on the lots to be rezoned are going to be eliminated.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Currently, there's 2 access points to the Dominion site,
Right.
and those will continue to be the 2 access points, and any other site, any other access points will be removed.
I think that's a change for the better to have fewer. It's kind of a confusing area there. Has the applicant also considered eliminating what will be interior lot lines when this is all one big cohesive development? So that basically just make this whatever the acreage turns out to be, but one bigger lot with the 2 rezone lots and then the other, it's a combination of 6 or 7 or so lots, right? When all is said and done. It seems like because this is going to be one cohesive development, not to have these interior lot lines anymore, because otherwise then you may end up with landlocked parcels.
Right. And I'll defer to Alex if there's a further answer from Dominion. That is under consideration right now, the possibility of consolidating parcels into one. I don't think a final decision's been made on if they plan to or not. So do you know if they know for certain if you want to do that?
Only thing I'd add to that is that if that's something that the council or the commission would like to see, I think that we'll take that feedback back to the project team, and since it's already under consideration, then hopefully that would weigh in one direction or the other.
I think it would make sense, because otherwise you end up with, the back lot, as Ashley called it, the lot behind the lot with the trailer. Parcel B is what it's called in the write-up. It's a landlocked parcel. I don't know if there's an easement to get from there to the one in front, or how access works now. But, I mean, what's being presented is one cohesive development plan, one use by one owner. So it seems like it would clear things up to get rid of the interior lot lines.
Yeah, that's good feedback. We'll take that back to the project team, certainly.
Dr. Miller? No.
So this is a question about the transmission. So I was just kind of Googling, I probably should have done this ahead of time. Like, is this a high pressure electric, or is it a low? I guess I'm interested in the health concerns, the potential health issues from transmission towers or transmission buildings.
Sure. So I don't believe that we intend on installing any transmission infrastructure on this site. It would be basically an employee function and the logistical support function to maintain existing transmission infrastructure in the area.
Oh, so that building you're talking about, that's just a maintenance, that's where the maintenance equipment's going to be stored to,
That's
for
right.
the transmission?
Yeah, equipment, but it wouldn't be installed, it wouldn't be energized on site.
Okay.
This is just so you can go out and maintain
Existing.
transmission lines as opposed to just the domestic distribution lines.
Correct. It's a good question, thank you. And if you are, we have information about health impacts and all of that on our website. I'd be happy to pass that along to you. No. Good clarifying question, thank you. Great. Thank you.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second to open the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
No one has signed up.
Man, nobody wants to talk transmissions. Perfect. So, with there being no one signed up for public hearing, would take a motion to close.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. All righty. Turn it back to the group for discussion.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve as presented. Any additional discussion? All righty, Madam Clerk, we'll take a roll call.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes, with the comment I made earlier to consider eliminating interior lot lines once this is all said and done.
Mr. Davenport,
Yes.
Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Crute,
Aye.
Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Fryling.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Alrighty. Item 8 on our agenda, a public hearing, CUP 24-008. Holly Johnson, on behalf of Dominion Energy, requests a conditional use permit to allow a public maintenance and service facility to support a public utility per Town Code Section 29-13.c. The site consists of approximately 6.77 acres on 6 parcels located on East 3rd Street and Millwood Road. The 6 parcels are identified as tax map numbers 0023A, 090A, 00-035, 0023A, 090A, 00-034, 0023A, 090A, 00033, 0023A, 090A, 00-030A, 0023A, 0915, 00-000A, and 0023A, 0915, 00-00B. Staff report, we'll start it off.
Thank you. So the request is to allow a public maintenance and service facility to support a public utility. The adjacent commercial uses include general office spaces. There's 1 single-family dwelling across Millwood Road from the site and 2 single-family dwellings on Longwood Avenue adjacent to the site. The cell tower is adjacent to the site and on property owned by Virginia Electric and Power Company. It is not part of the conditional use permit. The property is bordered to the west by the Farmville Moose Lodge, and further west is the Longwood University athletic fields. The proposal is to demolish the manufactured home office buildings, or the Dogwood Park 1, and the mini warehouse on Millwood Road. Dominion Energy proposes to expand the existing Dominion Energy building that fronts on East 3rd Street and construct a fleet garage, transmission building, and a covered vehicle storage facility on their property. The vicinity map to show the parcel, the subject parcels with the adjacent parcels. An aerial, again, to show the location, to show the Dominion Energy site, and then the athletic fields, the Moose Lodge to the left. This is the existing Dogwood Park 2 that would be demolished. This is their existing outdoor storage. This is the mini warehouse that would be demolished. Here is the front of their office on East 3rd Street. And back to their layout plan. Some considerations from the zoning ordinance. A public utility is any person, firm, corporation, municipal, department, or board duly authorized to furnish and furnishing under federal, state, or municipal regulations to the public electricity, gas, steam, communications, telegraph, transportation, or water. A public maintenance and service facility is described as a public facility supporting maintenance, repair, vehicular or equipment servicing, material storage, and similar activities, including street or sewer yards, equipment service centers, and similar uses having characteristics of commercial services or contracting or industrial activities. There are standards for this specific use listed in Section 2935 of the zoning ordinance. The minimum standards for a public maintenance and service facility are as follows. The outside storage for supplies, materials, or heavy equipment must be in the rear yard and screened from any non-industrial zone parcels or rights-of-way in accordance with the landscaping section of the chapter. Outside storage area shall not exceed 35% of the total area of the site. The comprehensive plan considerations is that this is general commercial land, which is uses are lower density element of Farmville's commercial economy. General commercial lacks the historic significance or tourism interest of the downtown, but provides goods and services that are necessary to the life of the town. The existing Dominion Energy building on East 3rd Street and the office buildings and manufactured home on Millwood Road have connections to the town's public water and sewer system. Minor changes are anticipated to the connections to those town utilities. There is adequate parking on site and no improvements are required to public streets. An increase in vehicle traffic is not anticipated with the expansion of this site. The site is not located in a floodplain or other protected area. There are no impacted watercourses, steep slopes, or other atypical environmental factors. Emissions should be minimal for commercial use. This application is consistent with the future land use map and general commercial districts of the comprehensive plan. Staff conditions are that the outside, or the two conditions that were listed previously, and then a third, that if the subject CUP is approved, a site plan is required for this development, which meets all ordinance requirements. In accordance with the zoning ordinance, the plan will be submitted to the Planning Commission for review and approval. The staff report has been supplied to the applicant and the engineers of the project. I can take any questions on the staff report at this time.
Any questions on the staff report?
Yes, I do. And this is just probably a procedural type of thing, but the two pieces of property that we just talked about changing the zoning on so that they would be in B3 now. Is that a done deal, or does town council have to stamp that as the done deal? Because I don't know how we can consider them in this if it's not a done deal for B3 already.
It would have to be heard by town council. If you want to add that condition to the CUP that the rezoning has to be approved prior, that is appropriate.
Okay.
When it goes to council, the rezoning request would be heard prior to the conditional use permit.
Right, okay.
Request.
I think it would make sense to add that.
I got one.
Mr. Krug.
So the legend does not show the parcel identified as 190 included in the conditional use, but in the site plan, it is identified. So is that so I think that might be a mistake, and I think the tax ID is like 33 Bravo. That's question one. And question two is, at least on our GIS website, I just realized 190 is R1, not B3.
I was going to say, you're referring to the site with the
Cell phone tower, yeah.
That was not included in the conditional use permit, and it was not included in the rezoning.
Okay. I can save that for the applicant, because I think, at least by the site plan as submitted, it's obvious that that parcel is intended to be used. So.
Alrighty, we'll invite the applicant forward if there are no other questions.
Not a question, but same suggestion as before about eliminating interior lot lines. And also, I would add as a condition to do what the applicant said they're planning on doing, eliminating entrances that currently exist on the lots you just rezoned, so that trucks and the Dominion Energy traffic is coming and going from their existing entrance on the main lot.
Cool. Come on up.
Sure, I don't have a whole lot to add from my earlier statement. I would say in the staff report, the adjacent parcels with the Moose Lodge and neighbors were noted, and we commit to keeping those neighbors informed of what the construction timeline and progress will be. I don't know. Do we want to direct the question about the parcels now? And I don't know.
Sure, I can, just for clarity's sake, so
Yeah.
the site plan has, from the Timmons Group, has 190 in it. I'm not sure the zoning is correct, and it was not submitted as part of the conditional use permit, so.
Good evening. Roger Rodriguez, also at Timmons Group. My My understanding, and we can clarify this with staff, we may not be able to do it tonight at the hearing, but my understanding is the tower parcel had a pre-existing cup to allow that use in the residentially zoned parcel, which is why it wasn't included in this cup.
I'd have to do some research. I'm not sure about that one. But
Yeah,
I can look-
and for reference, that conversation went back to Mr. Pambid. It was over a year and a half ago, but that was what he relayed to me when we had initial discussions about the parcel.
Do you have information on when that CUP was approved?
I do not. No, that was a verbal conversation that I had with Mr. Lee Pambid when he was employed at the town. But at that point, the project was very preliminary in nature, so the conversation didn't get much legs beyond that. And there was probably 8 to 10 months that lapsed between that conversation and when we first started making official application to the town. So that was more of an inquiry conversation that I had with Mr. Pambid, but that was my recollection at the time.
Who's Mr. Pambid? I'm just kidding. I know Lee watches these meetings still, so hello if you're watching.
Hello, Lee.
He's watching the VCU game, man. He says he didn't got time for Farmville no more. So what you're saying is, and Cam, I think we've been on this for, I think this goes back for a while. Like, yeah. So what y'all are saying is that Lee said because that parcel already had a conditional use permit, it wasn't necessary to include that in this application?
Yes, sir. That's my recollection.
Okay. I'm just kind of curious, and I'm just my own edification. But if it was a conditional use permit for a very specific use, isn't this a different use than what that property owner applied for? I'm not trying to make y'all's life difficult. I'm just trying to clarify something.
I would say based on the site plan, it's mostly parking lot and parking. The covered vehicle storage is on the site. I think the general use of that parcel would be the cell tower and not the public maintenance service in support of the public utility.
So to clarify further, do you recall when you had that discussion back when, what the scope of the CUP was on the cell tower lot? Was it for the cell tower or was it for parking like is shown?
The way that Mr. Pambid described it was to allow the cell tower, or the microwave communications tower, to exist on residentially zoned property.
So it seems like almost regardless of what that CUP said, there's probably no harm and probably something to gain, a lot of clarification, including this cell tower lot in this request because of the parking and the covered vehicle storage that's shown, right?
I would generally agree with that. The only downside I could see is staff and commission have already gone through public notice with certain lots included, and that was not on the list. So I don't know if that would take us back 30 days, but that's the only downside I could see.
Well, the other downside is if you don't do it and it turns out the scope of that previous CUP was limited to just a cell tower, not this, then you're going to have to eliminate that parking and that covered storage and also move your entrance from the big lot into the little lots. You're going to have some redesign.
Correct.
As a result.
I'm not sure, not necessarily, because you can park on residential. Like, there's nothing that prohibits you to park in your property, a residential property.
Well, this parking, though, wouldn't be for residential purposes, right?
That's correct. It would be to support the facility. And the other thing I don't know is how ancillary use definitions would play into that clarification.
Well, to be clear, I'm all for moving this forward. It just seems like Patrick's raised a good point, and we need to button it up one way or the other. If it can be buttoned up while this is moving forward at the council level, fine. But I'll defer to staff on what the right procedure is on that.
I'd have to check to see if we could amend the public hearing to go to, from what you've approved. If you approve it here, can we amend it before it gets sent to town council? I don't think we can amend it. I think it has to be what you've approved.
Would it change any adjacent lot owners?
No, the lot, adjacent lot owners should remain the same, but we can take a look at the vicinity map. It's the same adjacent owners.
So what I'm saying is that on this map as presented, 190 as a quick aside was not included in the rezoning and is R1. But current to this cup is not identified as a parcel that would fall underneath the conditional use permit. But in the site map, it is very obviously included. So if we were to defer, answer the question, and then we would then have to re-advertise?
Correct. You would defer, we'd have to re-advertise for possibly a January meeting.
But then if we defer, they can amend their existing cup, and there's no issues with them coming back in January, as if we were to deny it, then that's a whole different thing.
Right.
Okay. And also to be like, this is a no-brainer for me. I'm fully supportive. I'm coming at this as a good governance situation, and I don't think there'd be any long-term implications if we said yes tonight, however, I'd hate to have y'all have something, change your plan and us not do our due diligence and wind up in a what-if situation.
Can I add one more thought that we were caucusing back here? I'm not sure when the next council meeting that we would be docketed for, if that's February or January.
It's February.
Is there a planning commission meeting in January?
Yes.
Will that hear business, or is that?
To hear business.
Okay. Another option is we could introduce a third paper that would get heard for that specific parcel in January for planning commission, and then all three papers could go to town council in concert in February.
I think that'd be wise. So council's not meeting in January.
Council is meeting in January, but they're not having a work session.
Okay.
So to give them enough time to review, we would go to February for town council.
So the calendar actually works in that regard.
Does work in our favor. If we were to submit that third application, does that give you plenty of time to advertise?
I would need it before the 24th, December 24th.
Oh, so just 5 days?
I'd have to have the advertisement into the paper on December 26th at noon.
Okay. I'll make a second recommendation that, one, we dig up if there is a cup on that tower parcel and research it to see if it does have restrictions or things that work in favor that might undo what we just talked about. And a second option is we file the third paper by the 24th. The application is pretty straightforward, provided we can collect the signatures from ownership.
Question, Ashley, for you. I agree with your Plan A and Plan B. that you just laid out. If 190 is R1, correct, zoned R1, right? So currently, under the zoning ordinance, are there conditional use permits even allowed for R1 that would address this? If their current CUP doesn't solve this, does R1 allow CUPs that would solve this? Or does this really need to be rezoned?
It would need to be rezoned because I don't believe that the public service and maintenance facility is allowed by right in R1, or by conditional use permit in R1.
Right, so I think the nuance here, the solution is if your current CUP does not allow what you've shown in the site plan, you probably need to seek a rezoning.
2 new papers instead of 1.
Yeah. Right.
Understood.
Yeah, but that could be done in concert, just like tonight with those other 2 lots.
Well, but we're in the applicant phase, right? But just so I'm clear, what we're saying is we're not deferring 24-008 as presented. We are, I guess the technical way we would do this is add a condition if we vote to approve that CUP, that it cannot be approved by town council until option A is yes or no. And then if we go to option B, then we've approved an additional rezoning and a CUP for 190, right? Because I think the intent here is we keep moving 24-008 forward. And so the only way we can do that is to condition that process. And hopefully by the time we get to the motion, somebody is smarter than me has better words to describe that.
Yeah, and while you're amending the motion, a bit of housekeeping. I think it was Mrs. O'Connor mentioned that another condition was to have the zoning approved before the CUP could be approved.
It should automatically happen, but you can make that a condition if you'd like.
And I think there was also a suggestion that a condition be added to eliminate the other entrances and only utilize existing entrances.
Y'all aren't supposed to remind us of the conditions so much.
Hey, we like good governance too.
All right, we'll move through the process and then ponder those words to bring it all together. So we've heard from the applicant. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second to open the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, is there anyone?
No, sir.
All righty. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it. Deliberate.
That wasn't long enough.
Sorry, we have 3 conditions, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one is eliminating the additional entrances on Millwood. One is to condition the approval on the rezoning, right, that we've already heard of the first 2 lots. And then the third is, say it again, Patrick?
I have a 3-month-old. This isn't fair. I'd say conditioned on clarifying that the existing CUP satisfies the needs of the occupant, or a rezoning and an additional CUP for parcel 190 has been submitted, and approved by the planning commission. Does that make sense?
And the fourth being, when all is said and done, all these rezonings and CUPs are done, that the interior lot lines are eliminated, so this is one cohesive development.
All righty, so somebody's got to make the motion.
Moved as presented.
Is it clear to staff the four?
Yeah.
Because then we could just reference the four conditions.
Listed as staff conditions.
Oh, yeah. Is it clear?
For the sake of record and minute, we can go through the four conditions again, just to make sure we have clear conditions.
Condition 1 is the no additional entrances and the entrances being removed. Condition 2, well, I'll just say it as 2, is removing the interior lot lines. 3, well, the one that Patrick has is basically that the existing CUP on lot 190 either allows for the use that is being requested for CUP 24-008, or that an additional CUP is submitted for lot 190. Or additional rezoning and CUP is submitted for lot 190. Right. And the fourth one, that the rezoning of, I'll just, A and B is approved by town council before the CUP.
You need any clarification, Madam Clerk?
Okay, so that condition is that you want prior approval of the rezoning for 24-003.
Correct.
From town council. And then the entrances on Millwood Road. Could you consolidate?
On Millwood Road, so that the existing Dominion entrances are the only ones that will be utilized.
Okay.
So to clarify, we're not eliminating the entrance on Millwood that is their existing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's important to say existing.
Right. So,
We're eliminating the residential. Yes, no?
Eliminating the residential entrance and the entrance to the Dogwood Park one site.
Thank you. Yes, we're eliminating the residential entrance and the entrance to Dogwood Park 1 in those parcels.
it's hard to know from this photograph, but it's parcel numbers 202, 200, and 198. Some combination of those three is where those two entrances are. But we're keeping the entrance on 1609. That's the main Dominion lot. I'm just looking at the numbers in this photo that's being shown.
Second.
It's been moved and second with the conditions that were outlined with the clerk, including those offered in the staff report. Roll call.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Davenport?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Crute?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Furley?
Yes.
The motion is passed.
Look at that teamwork right there. Alrighty, so public hearing ZTA 24-001, a public hearing for the Planning Commission recommendation to amend the zoning ordinance by adding section 29-35.b.5 for fences. This will regulate the location and height of fences in the residential area. Staff report.
So this was presented to Planning Commission at the last meeting with Town Council's recommendation for the fences section of the town code. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions on the staff report?
I have a couple, please. Ashley, just to make sure I know where we are with this. These changes apply in R1 and R2 or all zoning districts?
Just residential. However, R3 is a little special because it does have some commercial uses. So some lots in R3 are governed by what's in our landscaping section. But this would be for residential lots only.
Any other questions for staff?
So I wasn't here in the last meeting, so this might have been discussed, but just so for my own edification, this has already been presented and voted on by council, I think. So what's the function of it coming back to us?
It has been presented to council, it has not been voted on. So Planning Commission has to make their recommendation for the presented ordinance.
So if I'm, so the initial recommendation we approved was taken to council. They had some discussion on it. That discussion led to some modifications that have now come back to council. So we're kind of pushing this uphill again.
Correct.
This is the third time it's been with us.
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Ashley, I have another question. There's an item 5B, as in boy, no fence shall be erected by any person without first obtaining in writing a permit. Let me just give you a quick scenario. When I bought my place here in town, there was a fence on the property, which I've since torn down. It was rotted and in the way of extending the driveway. But the fence was not a perimeter fence. It was not on the boundary of the property. It was just sort of at the end of the driveway, kind of extended out of the house, pointed toward one of the property lines, but didn't reach it. It was just an interior or an internal fence. If I wanted to build a fence like that, am I reading this right? I would need zoning administrator approval. It's
Correct.
kind of a fence, it was more of an aesthetic fence, but I would need.
Any structure built on a property needs to have a zoning permit. A shed typically does not have to have a building permit, but it still needs a zoning permit. And a fence, even if it's within the property lines, is the same scenario.
Okay. And then this question actually came up, an interesting coincidence. One of my neighbors across the street replaced a fence in their backyard recently. And the fencing contractor parked his equipment next to my place while they were doing the work. And I happened to walk out one day to get the mail, and he was there, and we struck up a conversation, and I asked him if he was aware the town was considering an ordinance, and he said he was aware, and he wondered if any of the fencing contractors have been contacted just for input. And I said, that's a good question, I don't know, just to ask, and I encouraged him to come to these meetings and hearings to speak up about life as a fencing contractor in town and what they go through and what would make sense for them. So the question is, has the town gotten any input from any fencing contractors?
Staff has not reached out to any fencing contractors.
Okay, all right. Because one of the topics was even though he's doing a fence in the backyard, fencing in the front yard, the 4-foot versus 8-foot height. And so I understand it's 4 feet if I'm going broadside across the front. Like if I'm standing on the street looking at a house, the 4 feet is for the height of the fence, kind of going left to right, right? But as I start going back, I'm still in the front yard, but I'm going back along the property lines toward the backyard. 4 feet or 8 feet?
4 feet from the building line. So anything behind that building line can go up to 8.
It bumps up to 8 feet.
And the building line is the setback of that zoning district, which is usually 35 feet from either the street right away or the property line.
Or the actual location
Or
of the building.
the
if it's
actual
not
location of the
conforming.
structure if it's not conforming.
Right. So as I'm going back along the side yards, the side property lines, it's 4 feet until I get to that setback line, and then it can bump up to 8. Okay, I understand.
Any additional clarifications on the staff report? If not, there's no applicant, so we'll have a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
It's been moved and second to open the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
There's no one signed up.
Alrighty, with no one being signed up, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty. We shall deliberate. Alrighty.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend approval of ZTA 24-001 to town council.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Speak now. Cool. Madam Clerk? Patrick?
Ms. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Davenport?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Crute?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Fraley?
Aye.
The motion is passed.
To give you some updates, CUP 24-006, which was the mobile food trucks, mobile restaurants on Griffin Boulevard, was approved by town council with the conditions listed in section 2935 D16, along with a limit of 2 food trucks at one time on the property. Trash and trash receptacles must be removed from the site daily. No additional signage to what is allowed for restaurants mobile, and a one-time amendment with no fee to the application. The 2025 meeting schedule has been presented for your information, and our next meeting will be held on January 15th, 2025.
I just have a quick question. Just out of curiosity, the one-time amendment with no fee to his application, like what does that mean, or what was the purpose of that?
So if he wanted to expand from 2 food trucks to 3, he could make that amendment to his CUP and come back before planning commission and town council.
Any other questions for staff? Alrighty, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Good night and good luck.